Good morning, Year 9. It's Mrs. Reed here and welcome to today's English lesson. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how we can link the war poetry that we have studied recently to narrative writing. Okay, I want you just to make sure, please, that you are ready to start the lesson, that you are distraction free, you have a pen or pencil and some paper before you carry on and start. So if you need to, please pause the video here and get yourself set up, ready for the lesson. Okay, so over the next couple of lessons, we are going to be crafting a narrative, so a story based on the topic of war. In order to do this, we're going to be using a scene from a famous film. We're using that as inspiration for writing. But we'll also be using ideas from the poems that we have studied. So narrative writing is a really important part of your English language GCSE. So the skills for narrative writing are something that we often practice in English and will be something that prepares you really well for next year. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is look at the film text that we're using as inspiration. This is an Oscar-winning film set in the Second World War and does include a really powerful recreation of the D-Day landings. In this film, we have the fictional story of some American soldiers who are sent out to rescue another soldier and return him home to his family. What I would like you to do at this point is to pause this video and go to Show My Homework, where you will find a link to the clip you'll be watching today on YouTube. It's about 5 minutes long, and it is worthwhile me saying that it is a very violent and intense war scene. If you are a little bit squeamish, you don't like to kind of watch that sort of a film, that's absolutely fine. You'll still be able to complete the task. There are some pictures that we'll use for inspiration, so you can choose not to watch it if you don't think that is something you would like to do. Okay, so pause the video here and go ahead and watch that 5-minute clip. Okay, so now you have seen that really powerful and intensive beach scene. What we're going to do is use that to imagine the experience of a soldier who is on one of the boats entering the beach in Normandy, France on June the 6th, 1944. And over a couple of lessons, what we're going to be doing is crafting a narrative in 4 parts and really describing what has happened to a soldier or a group of soldiers. Today, though, we're going to focus on 2 areas. Number 1, setting up the scene, and then 2, creating and introducing some characters. Okay, let's get started. First thing we need to do then is think about, what do I already know? This isn't the first time I will have encountered a piece of narrative writing. I would have read stories before. We've certainly studied lots of them in English. So I'd like you to think about which techniques you've learned this year, as well as which vocabulary might be really well suited to this task. So pause the video and just spend 2 minutes jotting down some ideas. What do I already know that I could do? Techniques I could use, vocabulary that I think would be good for this. Off you go. Okay, great. I'm sure that you've come up with a lot of really positive ideas here. But to help you out, I have also magpied and borrowed all these little shiny bits that I think would be really useful for your writing. You can find this slide as a PDF also on Show My Homework, and I would recommend it's one that you do refer to for your writing. On here we've got some of the keywords that have come up in a few of the poems we've read recently. We have some vocabulary also from the previous topics we've studied this year that might be useful, as well as some lines from our wonderful poems in the anthology. Now, these are not exhaustive, you might think, but there are some further lines you might like to include. Perhaps thinking about the poem you studied most recently, War Photographer. As well as this, there are also some sentence constructions that are at the bottom of the page to guide you. These are ones I know that you've used before. We've used them when we were describing a historical event, the Gunpowder Plot and Guy Fawkes, as well as in writing about the Pendle Witch Trials as well. Okay, so a really useful resource, something you can refer back to, and as I say, this is on Show My Homework to help you out. So now we've thought about what we already know and what things will help us with the writing, it's time to start planning. So our first paragraph is all about setting the scene. We have two images here, or screenshots taken from the opening of the film clip you've watched. So we want to start planning around this first of all. We might start with literally, what can we see? And we can label around those images. We can see the sea, the sky, some boats, soldiers, okay, the spray from the water. Once we've done that, we might then want to get more descriptive. Can we build up some noun phrases? So using some adjectives to describe the sky. Well, in this case, I might say that the sky is very dull and heavy. Maybe a word like laden might be useful, the laden sky. If I'm looking at the spray from the water, I imagine that to be very cold. So maybe I could describe it as the icy spray. When I look at the soldiers, I'm looking at what they're doing. Well, are they sort of ducking down? Is that the best way to describe that movement? And once I've done that, I'm going to add my labels to my sheet. So you can see my example here. I've really started to try and think about what it is I'm going to describe and focus on first of all. Thought about the waves, how they might be moving, thundering along. And you can add sensory detail here too, thinking about not just what you can see, but what might we hear? What might the soldiers be experiencing or feeling at this time? So my advice to you is to pause the video, to make some notes on the things you could describe in the opening of your story. You might want to borrow to Magpie some ideas from me here, you're more than welcome to. And I have included a couple of words that I'm going to use in my story, but you may also wish to try out. So laden, being dull, heavy or slow, or futile, something that's incapable of producing a useful result, therefore is pointless. Okay, pause the video and make some notes on the things that you could describe in your opening scene. Brilliant. Okay, now that you've done that, let's look at a couple of examples. So first of all, I'm going to show you a rather mediocre, response. I'll read it first and then we'll look at how can we improve this. So as I'm reading, I want you thinking about how could this be made better. The sky is grey. I am in a little green boat and we are going along the sea. The sea is rough, there is waves coming over us. I duck, but the wave hits me in the head. It is cold. Pause the video quickly and just see if you can identify 2 to 3 things that I could do to improve this piece. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look through this. So first of all, I've got the sky is grey. Well, that's one, it's a very short sentence. and it doesn't really do too much to describe in detail the sky. Yes, we've got the colour of it, but perhaps there is some better vocab and some more description we could build in. Okay, I'm in a little green boat. Well, we have this here, I am, it's written in the first person. There's nothing to say that we have to write from the perspective of a soldier. We can write as an outside narrator, so in the third person, should we wish. And I'm going to advise that we do that. We've also got this phrase, we are going along the sea. Well, that seems to me to be rather informal. So we're going to have to think carefully about our word choices and make sure they're very clear and precise. The sea is rough, okay? There is waves. Well, first of all, we've got a bit of a run-on sentence here. That is two sentences joined together. The sea is rough, okay? That's one a main clause. There should be a full stop. And then there is waves coming over us. Again, tense is a bit out here too, isn't it? There are waves coming over us. So this piece could do with a bit of proofreading. And it continues in the same vein. I duck, but the wave hits me in the head. It is cold. So we're missing some punctuation, a comma here before the conjunction but, and that final sentence could really be developed further. So I would say at the moment, this piece really needs a lot of improvement. It's not the style that we're looking for. So how could we improve it? Well, like I've said, we could develop the description of the place and the weather. Writing in the third person is also a good idea. It takes us out of the story and therefore gives us a little bit more scope that we can describe around the scene, looking anywhere that we wish and then zooming in on the things we want to look at in more detail. We want to use some more interesting vocabulary. It's a bit limited at the moment. We definitely want to vary our sentence constructions as well as checking carefully our spelling, punctuation and grammar. So let's look at a marvellous response, one that is improved. Okay, I'll do the same thing again. I'll read it to you. And as I do that, I want you thinking, well, why is this one better? What can I spot, okay, that makes this an improved version? Listen. Under laden skies, the boat bounces through the furious waves that spray torrents of icy salt water at the soldiers. All duck, trying to avoid the onslaught, but it is futile, as the water thunders against their helmets and seeps down their necks, creeping down their backs and chilling them to the bone. I hope that you can hear already that in the reading of that, it starts to feel much more dramatic. We've also got some really precise language choices, okay, thinking about that vocab, laden, onslaught, futile. And I hope you identified too some really varied sentence constructions. Okay, starting with that nice prepositional phrase, under. Bit of personification here, the furious waves that spray torrents. And some really developed clauses building up. Okay, developing that sentence. And into a really precise and interesting description of the place and the setting. Okay, so over to you then to set the scene. Hopefully you've got your notes and your plan. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a go at crafting a sentence together before I set you off on writing your first paragraph. So together then, at sentence level, we're going to construct one sentence. And you can see from my outline structure here, it's going to include 3 clauses. Okay, 2 subordinate clauses and a main clause. And that main clause will go in the middle, must contain a subject and a verb. Okay, so I'm going to write a sentence here that describes the place and the weather. And I can be inspired by anything that I have on my sheet or what I've written before. So as the something, okay, so maybe I want to focus on the weather here. As the ranks of clouds, perhaps, what are they doing? As the ranks of clouds gathered overhead, good, okay, that would work. The turbulent waves, what are they doing? The turbulent waves crashed, bouncing the boat chaotically towards the shore. Have a go at crafting a sentence of your own.